OpenClaw is awesome until your own computer becomes the server. Every tutorial out there shows you the exact same thing, how to run it locally. That's fine if you're just testing it out, but I don't want to do that on my own PC. And I also don't have a spare Mac Mini or 64 gigs of RAM just lying around. Luckily, there's a better way, and it costs less than a Netflix subscription. I'm going to show you how to run OpenClaw in the cloud. You can do this by renting out a Cloud VPS, which is always on 24/7, as well as accessible from anywhere. Pretty much the perfect situation for OpenClaw. Let's begin. Our first task is to have a hosting platform. For this, I'll be using Hostinger. They're actually my favorite hosting provider, and I've used them for multiple startups, WordPress websites, and now they have this one-click OpenClaw setup, which makes it ready in just about 1 minute. I'll show you how to set this up automatically through their system, as well as the manual way to do it on your own VPS. The pricing to do so is around $6 to $8, depending on if you're doing US or Australian pricing. Let's select the popular plan here, and I'm going to just quickly go through the checkout and get us into the dashboard to get this up and running. But if you want a further discount, you can use the coupon code AdrianTwarog here at checkout. From here, click Continue. From here, you should be taken to the OpenClaw setup, but if you're on the dashboard, you can click on the left-hand menu here on OpenClaw and select the setup option on your new instance. There's only 2 more steps from here. First, to select an AI provider. Personally, I like Anthropic, but you can use the pre-default Nexios that comes with Hostinger. To set one up with Anthropic, click the link over here, log in with your account, then on the top menu, select Get an API key. From here, you'll want to generate a brand new key, give it a label so you know what it's attached to, and then copy that back into the OpenClaw setup process. And make sure you keep this key private. After this, select Next and wait for your OpenClaw to set up. The second step is to connect your OpenClaw to a messaging app. There's the option for WhatsApp and Telegram, but Telegram is much easier to set up. First, I'll open it up and search up the user account botfather. Then I'm going to select to create a new bot, and I'll give it the name of Hostinger OpenClaw bot. From here, I can create the bot and copy over the bot token back into the setup for OpenClaw here in the web browser. Once again, make sure this is a token that you don't share to anyone. You'll need to confirm the process by heading back to the main Telegram section and searching up the username we generated earlier for the bot itself. From here, select it and then select to start a conversation with it. It's going to give you a pairing code, which we're going to copy back into the setup for OpenClaw. And from that, we're now complete. Feel free to make a copy of your access token. You can now open up OpenClaw from this button just over here. That's the process complete, though there are a few additional steps you might want to take if you're actually using OpenClaw for production. First is to test that Telegram and OpenClaw are working together. Here I can send a message through Telegram and I get the same response back inside of OpenClaw as well as in Telegram. Since we're using OpenClaw in the cloud, we'll want to connect up some apps and services to it, because while we can still set up all the agents and skills, the applications you're connected to need to be done so securely. One tool I've been recommending to do this is Zapier, especially through their MCP or SDK system. It sits between your OpenClaw setup and your application, and you can define the security rules and access to each application in fine detail. Here's how to do so. Select a new MCP server, search up OpenClaw, select the link, and then follow the instruction guide. Right now, I want to give it access to my emails. So in order to do this, I'm going to simply select Add Tool and select Gmail from here. From here, I can also define exactly what it can do in Gmail. So I'm only going to give it access to look for emails and create drafts. I'm not going to let it have access to things like sending or deleting emails. Be aware that I do have access to thousands of applications, so I could connect up something like Slack or Notion, but I'm just going to leave that for the future. The next step is to create the secure connection with Zapier. And in order to do this, we need to install MCP Porter and connect it up to the OpenClaw instance. This is normally done in the terminal, but since OpenClaw is pretty smart, I should be able to just simply copy and paste all of this in straight into my OpenClaw session and ask it to configure it for me. This will run in the background for a couple of minutes, and when it's ready, it'll just spit out a URL which you'll need to click on in order to create the connection. One thing to note is that since we're doing this through a Cloud VPS, we do need to make sure we copy the URL that we receive back from Zapier back into OpenClaw, since this is running on a local host server and IP address. And that's all that there is to it. Essentially, it's now connected up to Zapier, which is connected up to my Gmail, so I can ask it to pull out some of my latest emails, and OpenClaw will have access to this. And this becomes pretty useful when you interconnect multiple apps and tools together. There is one more way to set up OpenClaw in the cloud, and that's actually through a plain VPS running on something like Ubuntu. The process for this is a little bit more complicated, since you need to work inside of the terminal, and it takes a little bit more experience and command line prompts in order to get everything installed and working. Let's set one up. In the Hostinger dashboard, head over to Get VPS and create a new one called the KVM VPS. I recommend selecting the region that's closest to you, then after that selecting Ubuntu for the operating system, picking the latest version, which is 24 right now. From here you can generate a root password and an SSH key. For now, just copy out your root password and select next, and finally pick a pricing plan. I'm just gonna pick the standard one here. With that done, let's select our new server and access it. Here in Hostinger, you can actually go straight into its terminal by selecting the terminal button at the very top. This essentially connects you through a web browser. So while this looks like a terminal, this is actually running inside of my Chrome window. I'm already logged into the root, so all I need to do now is install Node.js and then install OpenClaw. It's actually faster to install Node.js with NVM these days, which is the preferred way for developers. So I'll install NVM here by copying this command line, as well as activating NVM with this command over here. From here, we can install the latest version of Node by running nvm install --lts, which just installs the latest version of Node. This should install pretty quick. And once it's done, we can now move on to installing OpenClaw. In order to do this, we can head over to the OpenClaw website, copy out the single command that's required to get it up and running, which is npm install -g OpenClaw, paste that straight into our terminal, and then finally run OpenClaw Setup for initiating it. The command for this is OpenClaw onboard. The process for the rest of this is very familiar as if you're doing it on your local machine. I'm just going to install the quick start setup here. We're going to use the same Anthropic API key we created earlier. I'll continue to use the latest version of Claude Opus 4.7, but I will skip past most of the other stuff, like configuring WhatsApp, configuring skills, since you can do that in your own time. Finally, we'll want to make sure that we can access OpenClaw, and we're going to do so through Hatch in the terminal, which allows us to start chatting along with it directly in the terminal just like this. With that done, you now have an instance of OpenClaw running in the cloud. Just be aware that while this is useful, it will be limited to the machine specs you currently have available and what they have access to. And it's also one of the reasons I didn't set up a local large language model hosted on something like Ollama or LM Studio in this instance. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any questions about OpenClaw in the cloud on a VPS, let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, I have 2 additional videos worth checking out, which are OpenClaw use cases up here, as well as how to set up OpenClaw with a local model up here. Thank you.